Hello, my name is Sam, and today we're going to be going over the movie analysis project. The movie series that I'm picking for this project is the Harry Potter series. I know that's not a single movie, but it is an all-encompassing story that it is a story that's based off a book, which means it includes a ton of dialogue and a ton of communication. So I feel like it was a really good source to pick for this project, just considering how much dialogue and how much of the movies and the books in general are um, based on dialogue and communication. And there's tons of examples of tons of things that we've been learning in class, different concepts, and I feel like Harry Potter was just a great um, series to pick for this project. So the the first two, actually no, the first chapter that I'm going to be going over is, I believe here it is chapter three. So chapter three, the two concepts that I'm going to be going over from this um, from this chapter on this project is social comparison and face needs and face threats. So the first clip I'm going to show you is from Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets. It's the second movie in the series. Um, I'm going to show you the clip, and then I'm probably going to cut up the clip a little bit to where it's not just a full long clip. I'm going to cut it up a little bit to where it shows basically the examples that I needed to show, and then I'll go over how those examples are significant and how they relate to the concepts of this chapter.
Malfoy? That's right. And that's not all that's new this year.
Those are Nimbus 2001s. How did you get those?
A gift from Draco's father.
You see, Weasley, unlike some, my father can afford the best.
At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in. They got in on pure talent.
No one asked your opinion, you filthy little mudblood.
She'll pay for that one, Malfoy. Eat slugs!
Now, as you see from this first clip from Chamber of Secrets, in the scene, Draco Malfoy and his friends from the Slytherin house, they have recently got brand new Nimbus 2001 brooms. They're basically the rich kid brooms, the expensive ones, and the only reason that Draco Malfoy and his friends are able to get that is because Draco's dad is a very rich, powerful wizard. They are from the Malfoy family, which also, if you have seen the movies before, if you understand any context, the Malfoy family have ties to Voldemort, which is the Dark Lord, like the main bad guy of the series. And because of that, anyone who's tied with him generally has a lot of money and a lot of power in the wizard world. So anyway, back to the scene. Draco, he's showing off his Nimbus 2001s, that he got all of his buddies. And also, in this scene, there are two different things that I want to go over as far as concepts from the chapter. Social comparison. So, as you see in the clip, Draco Malfoy is saying, "Oh, we got these brand new brooms. Some of us can afford luxury. Some of us can have better things than people like you." And he's talking to Hermione Granger, Harry Potter, and Ron Weasley, the three main characters. Ron Weasley, for context, is from a much poorer wizard family. So he's directing a little bit of his meanness and social comparison at Ron Weasley for being poorer and not being able to afford nice things like Draco Malfoy does. And also, if you notice in the clip, about 10 or 15 seconds later, he calls Hermione Granger a mudblood, which in the wizard world basically means she's a half-blood. She is not full wizard blood, and wizards like Draco Malfoy from the Slytherin house and also from his Malfoy family heritage, they don't like half-bloods. They like full-bloods. They're almost racist in a way with the way they feel about that. And Draco calls her a mudblood, which he's basically making a social comparison that I'm full-blooded, I'm rich, I'm a real wizard, you're just a mudblood, that basically putting her down. Comparing their two situations, and how he sees himself. Um, so yeah, there's a social comparison of him saying like, I can afford all this and that, making fun of Ron Weasley in the clip, and there's a social comparison where he's negatively socially comparing Hermione Granger and calling her a mudblood, and putting distance between them, and singling her out. Um, Also, another thing that is present in this clip is um, face needs and face threats. So, let me pull this up really quickly. Sorry. So Draco Malfoy, the face that he presents is the competency face. Draco Malfoy, amongst his friends and amongst his peers in the series, he is looked at as kind of like the leader of the Slytherin house. He's very bold. He's very charismatic. He's kind of mean and douchey, and but he's got a big head on his shoulder. He's big headed. Like, he thinks he's the stuff. He Because of his parents and because of the family he comes from, and because of the money he comes from, and the ties with the main bad guy of the series, he he just has this ego that he's built up, and he uses that competency face, um, where he wants everyone to look at him a certain way and have a certain image about himself. And in this clip, you will notice that Hermione Granger kind of brings that down. She creates a face threat. When she stands up for herself and says things like, "Well, at least the people from Gryffindor got on the team because they're actually," I can't remember what exactly she said, but she says basically, "At least the Gryffindor team got on the team because they're actually good, not because their dad's rich." Um, so there's a face threat there, because like this face that he's been trying to portray of being competent and being this leader, and being the big the big macho guy, and she's creating a threat for that. Um, Also, while socially comparing at the same time, she's saying, us over at Gryffindor, we're actually good at Quidditch, which is the broom game they play, by the way. We're actually good at Quidditch. You're just getting in because your dad's rich. She's socially comparing. She's creating a face threat. The face or the image that he's presenting, it's getting torn down. Uh, so yeah, I feel like this clip is a good example of both face threats, and social comparison, especially with the whole mudblood thing, with the whole, you know, comparing and saying, the Gryffindor house is better than you. We don't need money, and then Draco's over here like, oh, at least my dad can afford to get us all good rooms and all this stuff. But so yeah. Now, this next clip I'm going to show you from the same movie is actually a scene that ties in with the first scene. So after the scene where Draco Malfoy calls her a mudblood and has this whole altercation, and he's socially comparing that he's rich and they're not, after this scene, Hermione Granger is emotionally affected by it. She's sad. She doesn't like to be called a mudblood. So Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley, they go over to their friend Hagrid's house, which Hagrid's actually an adult. He's like one of their mentors at the school. They go over to his hut or his home, and Hermione expresses some of her emotions about how Draco called her a mudblood. And Hagrid in this scene shows incredible emotional intelligence. He's able to calm her down. I'll show you the clip, and then I'll explain more.
Malfoy. He called Hermione... well, I don't know exactly what it means.
He called me a mudblood.
He did not.
What's a mudblood?
It means dirty blood. Mudblood's a really foul name for someone who is muggle-born, someone with non-magic parents, someone like me. It's not a term one usually hears in civilized conversation.
See, the thing is, Harry, there's some wizards Like the Malfoy family, who think they're better than everyone else because they're what people call pure blood.
That's horrible. It's disgusting.
And it's Codswallop to boot. Dirty blood. Why, there isn't a wizard alive today that's not half blood or less. More to the point, they've yet to think of a spell that our Hermione can't do. Come here. Don't you think on it, Hermione. Don't you think on it for 1 minute. Hey?
Now, as you see in that clip, Hagrid has an outstanding emotional intelligence when dealing with a situation where Hermione is sad because she's been called a mudblood. The emotions that that brings up in her, you can tell she needs reassurance. She needs someone to let her know that no, you're still a good wizard. You're not something less because your parents, or because one of your parents is human. Um, and yeah, Hagrid just shows such good emotional intelligence, reassuring her, patting her on the back, telling her like, doesn't matter what he says, you're a great wizard. Um, and just yeah, just the fact that he's able to understand the situation, understand that this isn't the time to be like, oh, you are a mudblood, or technically you are. No, he understands the situation, and he's able to de-escalate her, calm her down, and not only to calm her down, but make her feel better about the situation and emotional support with it, and connect with her, connecting with her heavily in a conversation. And just being there as a support, and just I don't know, his emotional intelligence in this scene is just outstanding. Um, Also, another thing that from um, another thing from actually what chapter? Emotional intelligence. Hold on 1 second. Chapter 8. So yeah, this would be part of chapter 8. Another thing from chapter 8 that this scene the concept from chapter 8 that this scene portrays is cultural influence and emotion. So Hagrid is a giant. He's a giant that comes from the land of wizards. He's never lived in like England, where a lot of the characters in this series lived before they went to the wizard world. Hagrid's always lived in the wizard world amongst giants. So Cold and Hermione, for example, grew up in the human world and moved to the wizard world whenever she became of age to go to Hogwarts. So culturally, they're very different. Hagrid says bumbling things sometimes and acts stupid and like giants do in the series, whereas Hermione is very proper, very English. And is from more of a human culture. But even though there are cultural differences, Hagrid is still able to look and see the situation, have the emotional intelligence to be able to calm her down and be a true friend to her in this scene. And no matter the difference in their cultures. Because you know, if you called Hagrid a mudblood, he's going to be like, who cares, brother? Who cares? But, you know, if you call Hermione that, considering the culture she comes from, with her having one wizard parent and one human parent, she's going to feel differently about that, and Hagrid has the emotional intelligence to see that. Um, so, yeah, as far as Chapter 8 goes, when it comes to the series, I feel like this is um, one of the biggest examples of both cultural influence on emotion and emotional intelligence, especially the emotional intelligence. I think that as far as movies go and seeing examples of emotional intelligence, this is, in my opinion, one of the best examples. Um, so the next thing that I want to move on to, as far as the Harry Potter series and the concepts from these chapters, is um, let me see here really quickly. I'm going to be going over stages of grief with this next clip. So this next clip I'm going to be showing you is a clip where a character named Dobby passes away in the movie series. It is later in the series, so one thing I do want to go over contextually about the series is that in the earlier movies, like the clip I showed you before, there's a lot more childlike issues going on. You know, the actors are younger, and the story itself has younger characters in it, so there's much less mature things going on in the movies. But as we get later into the movies, much more mature things happen, like characters dying. You know, a lot more mature subject matter. So the next clip I'm going to show you is a scene where a character. This is also part of chapter 8. A character dies. His name is Dobby. He is a house elf that is a pretty big character throughout the series. And I wanted to just go over one more thing that I wanted to go over with chapter 8 is grief. So I was going to show you this clip and go over some of the things that I feel like were good points about grief with this scene.
Harry Potter.
We should close his eyes. Don't you think? There. Now he could be sleeping.
I want to bury him. Properly. Without magic.
So as you saw in the clip, Dobby the house elf dies. Basically what happened is that there was basically a wizard fight that happened right before. Dobby had saved everyone by getting everyone out of the area quick, but as he was escaping with everyone, he was stabbed with a dagger. A dagger was thrown at him right as he was escaping with everyone, and he was hit with the dagger. So just to give a little background, Dobby is a huge character in Harry Potter. He's been in since the second movie, all the way till the end. And so his death is a huge milestone for the movie series. So you notice that immediately, the second Dobby dies in the movie, grief starts to set in. Just like I read in chapter 8, when grief sets in with humans, we tend to not talk as much. We tend to close up. We tend to keep short sentences. We don't talk as much. We don't communicate as much when we're going through grief. We like to keep to ourselves. And as you notice in the clip, everyone's sad. They've lost their friend, and they start being quiet. They start speaking in 3 or 4 word sentences. They're not trying to have full friendly conversations because they're grieving a loss. And I don't know. I've read it in chapter 8. I've read the stuff about grief, and I thought to myself, this is a great example of that from the Harry Potter series, and I thought I would like to include that. So now I'm going to move on to chapter 6, which goes into nonverbal communication, and I have a scene from the Harry Potter series that is a very good example of nonverbal communication. There are whole full conversations that are happening in the scene without a single word. And even as a viewer, even if you put yourself in the character's perspective in the scene, you know what they're saying. As a viewer and as the character, you know what's being said. You know what the message is without any words being said. And there's also parts of this clip too where there are things being said, but the nonverbal communication speaks louder than the verbal. So I'm going to show you the clip now. It is also a serious clip from the show. It's actually not the show, the series. It is a clip where another main character, Dumbledore, which is the head of Hogwarts. He's the old man, sweet, good example character for the show, or not the show, the series. He dies in this scene, and I'll have you watch a little bit of that, and then we'll go over all of the nonverbal communication that happens in the scene and why I think it's important as far as context for this chapter.
Draco, years ago, I knew a boy who made all the wrong choices. Please let me help you.
I don't want your help. Don't you understand? I have to do this. I have to kill you. He's gonna kill me.
Look what we have here.
Well done, Draco.
Good evening, Bellatrix. I think introductions are...
Have the stomach, just like his father. Let me finish him in my own way.
No! The Dark Lord was clear the poison to do it. This is your moment. Do it. Go on, Draco. No!
No. Severus. Please. Avada Kedavra.
So as you can see from this clip, nonverbal communication is extremely heavy in this scene. So first I want to start with Draco Malfoy. So you see at the beginning of the clip, Draco Malfoy is basically confronting Dumbledore, which Dumbledore was his headmaster and an old man, like the head of the school who has helped almost raise him. And Draco Malfoy is telling him, I have to kill you, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to do this, and he's basically doing it as a way to try to prove to the Dark Lord Voldemort that he is willing to be a pure blood Slytherin bad guy. But you can tell that even though he's saying verbally, I'm going to kill you, I have to kill you, he's saying, I have to kill you, I'm going to kill you, that what he's verbally saying is not matching his nonverbal communication. His nonverbal communication, his lips quivering, his eyes look like he's about to cry, his hands shaking. You can tell through the clip that he does not want to kill Dumbledore. Dumbledore, like I said, Dumbledore is someone who almost helped raise him. He's been at this school for years. This has been someone he's looked up to as a child throughout the first 3 or 4 movies. And you can tell through his the nonverbal communication, his hands shaking, he's frowning, he looks like he's about to cry, he's not stable. You can tell by that he does not want to kill Dumbledore, and as you see from the end of the clip, he doesn't. He doesn't muster the strength to do it, so Snape has to do it. Now, the other nonverbal communication that is really heavy in this scene is, as you see, Harry is underneath the platform, hiding, and he's contemplating going up there and helping Dumbledore and saving him. And as you see, Snape comes down there, and without a single word said, it is very obvious the message. He looks at Harry, he goes, and it's very clear, not a single word was said. And us as the audience, and even if we put ourselves in the character's shoes, we know Snape is saying, don't be a hero, Harry. This isn't worth it. I'm going to do the right thing. Or that's me knowing the movie, but he's basically saying, without saying a single word, Harry, do not risk your life. This is not worth it. I'm going to do something to figure this out. And yeah, basically it's weird that there's not a single verbal word said in this conversation, but I know it is a conversation because it's very clear what's being said without a single word, and I feel like that's a great example of nonverbal communication in this movie especially. I mean, also, I almost forgot to say, there's also the nonverbal communication between Snape and Dumbledore when he gets up there right before he shoots Dumbledore with the wand. You can tell in his eyes he also does not want to kill Dumbledore. He knows that he has to further The only way to make things be good in the future is to make things be bad in this moment in the series. But you can tell just by his face, his stance, his and most of it's in his face. You can tell he does not want to kill Dumbledore. Also, if you look at the female character in this scene, Bellatrix Lestrange, it is clear that she's staring at Draco with a very angry face, a frown. It is very clear to the audience and to the character that she's saying, "Kill him, Draco. Kill Dumbledore. I told you to do it already, verbally, but now, non-verbally, she's staring at him like, do it." Like, you know what I'm saying? She didn't say it again, but she non-verbally is staring at him, being like, "What are you doing? Kill Dumbledore." And then, as you saw at the end of the clip, he didn't, because his non-verbal communication was giving it off in the beginning that he did not want to do it, and he did not have the strength to do that. Um, even though he verbally was saying he would. "I'm going to kill you. I have to kill you." And then he doesn't, because his non-verbal communication is giving off the real story. Um, but yeah, between, Snape completely having a full conversation with Harry without saying a single word, that was a great example. Draco, verbally saying something that completely doesn't match his nonverbal communication, that was a great example. And also just the nonverbal communication between Snape and Dumbledore, where he's, about to kill him, and when he does kill him, you can tell in his face the entire time his emotions are not giving off what he did. Like, he did that in front of the bad guys to prove to them, like, "Oh, I'm on your side for now." But you can tell by his face and his nonverbal communication that that is not what he wanted to do. So those are fantastic examples of nonverbal communication. As far as chapter 6, I think I had 3 different examples in there. One of them being a conversation that had literally no verbal, one of them that did have verbal, and they didn't. Um, and, uh, also, Snape, you know, shushing Harry, telling him, this is basically non-verbally telling him not to help Dumbledore, is a nonverbal expression of power. He's basically he is higher up than Harry in the school, and Harry knows that whatever Snape says is more than likely for the best. Um, also, the the verbal communication that Draco's giving off in this scene, it not matching his nonverbal, the verbal communication that he's giving off, he is doing it to be able to maintain a relationship with the bad guys, the Slytherin house, the Dark Lords, people, but his nonverbal communication is giving off a completely separate story. Um, but yeah, I just think that like this scene was just it was a great example of how you can have an entire conversation without even saying a single word, based on just face and body movements and things like that. And I also thought it was a great example of how verbal communication a lot of times does not match up with nonverbal, and nonverbal communication is something that you can trust more than the verbal, because it's harder for humans to be able to control their nonverbal communication than it is for them to control their verbal. And that was just a great example of it in this scene. I thought it was just a fantastic example of that concept from chapter 6. But yeah, so that is my movie analysis of the Harry Potter series. Once again, the reason that I didn't pick one singular movie is just because I feel like, this is an all encompassing story. As far as the books go, it really is just one fluent story, and I just felt like to find the best examples, in my opinion, of the different concepts like social comparison, face threats, face needs, nonverbal communication, grief. What was the other one? Anyway, I can't remember what the last one was, but I felt like flip flopping around to different movies in the series was the best way to get emotional intelligence as well, and cultural uh, effect on emotions. Anyway, yeah, I felt like it was the best way to do it was to just flip flop around from different movies that have those great examples. And I do think that even though this is a fictional world, I do think that it doesn't really matter. There's tons of dialogue in these movies and tons of communication, and even though they're acting, they are very well simulating real life conversations and how we react and the things that we naturally do So yeah, that was my movie analysis of Harry Potter, and applying all those different concepts to the movie. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.